Well, I think across the Western world, defence budgets have been going down since the end of the Cold War as a proportion of GDP. Actually, our defence budget, as a share of our GDP, is one of the higher in NATO. I think it's in the top 5. It's certainly in the top half of the league table. But
It is now.
well, it was before as well. And Western countries as a whole have seen defence budgets go down after the Cold War. But it is, for obvious reasons, but it is clear now that with the way Russia is behaving, and other hostile states like Iran, North Korea are behaving, possibly even China in the South China Sea. It is clear we do live in a more dangerous world.
My point is Trump has said the Americans have paid essentially for our welfare spending. But actually, Biden and Obama said exactly the same things, and you didn't listen.
Well, I don't think that's true because, as I say, we did get our defence spending over. The NATO target, Trevor, is, the NATO target is 2%. We've been consistently above that 2% and had a plan to get to 2.5%. But it's clear we do now need to go further.
All right, let's talk about how, in practice, we might go further. One way in which we could increase our defence capability is simply to have more people under arms. Latvian president told me this weekend that he'd expect other European nations to consider, as his country has done, conscription. Now, you're under new leadership, but actually, in your manifesto, you had a plan for national service. Would you still stand by that?
Well, it was National Citizen Service, wasn't it? And it was
one part of it was to put
people
in uniform. Would you still stand by that proposition?
Well, look, I think we're not going to obviously write our manifesto now, so I'm not going to recommit to things that were in the previous manifesto. We'll need to do the thinking properly. I'm not going to sort of speculate 4 years ahead.
You just spent 6 minutes telling me about the wonderful plans you had before when you were in government and how good they were. What's wrong with the plan that you put forward last June and July?
Well, nothing's wrong with it. I'm just saying...
national service.
No, there's nothing wrong at all with it. I'm just saying I'm not going to write the entire manifesto. Now, just in the same way, I wasn't going to give you details on exactly how our welfare policy would look, but I was saying in general terms, we need to get that welfare bill down.
So would conscription be something that would be on the table for you when you're thinking about the next Conservative government?
Well, I don't think it was really exactly conscription, what was being proposed. No. It was a national citizen service, which is a bit different. And as I say, look, I think the idea of getting younger people to do voluntary work and, perform useful tasks is not a bad idea. But, look, I'm not going to write the detail of the next manifesto now, and you wouldn't expect me to. Well,
one of the things that you are already saying is that you want to... The technical word is disapply the Human Rights Act to immigration. That is to say, to remove the rights of appeal, representation and so on from people who have migrated maybe in irregular ways. Is that quite where you want to be?
Well, so we think that the way UK judges are applying the ECHR in our domestic UK courts has become out of control, and they've stretched these definitions so far. So, I mean, you'll know from your previous roles that some of these ECHR articles are very vaguely worded, things like a right to a family life or freedom from degrading treatment. Now, what do those mean in practice? Well, they mean whatever a judge says they mean. Now, if judges interpret those reasonably, that's fine. But what we've seen in the last few years in UK courts is judges have expanded these definitions wider and wider. So you've seen cases, for example, where somebody has illegally entered the UK, is trying to stay here, then joined a terror group in their country of origin in order to say, oh, if I go back, I'll be persecuted. Yet they chose to do that, essentially, for immigration purposes. There was a case of let me give you another example. There was a case of a Jamaican rapist who raped a woman and then sort of claimed to be bisexual in order to stop getting sent back to Jamaica. You get these sort of spurious claims the whole time, and we think...
Well,
let me finish.
You don't know that it's spurious, do you? What you want to do is to interfere with the judge's judgment.
Well, we want the judges in UK courts to apply only UK law that's been passed by Parliament, and obviously we would expect Parliament to legislate reasonably. Now, of course, if a person...
Both the cases you've just mentioned are English judges.
That's right. Because that's right. Because, as you know, but listeners may not, the Human Rights Act allows judges in the UK to apply their interpretation of these very vague ECHR articles. And they have stretched these definitions so far, in some cases it just defies common sense. We don't think UK judges should do that any longer for immigration cases. Instead, those judges should just apply the UK law passed by Parliament so we can restore some common sense. There are 20,000 foreign criminals in the country who should have been removed but haven't been, largely because of the way these human rights laws have been applied. And those 20,000 people are posing a danger to our fellow citizens. What about their human rights?
Your big worry is reform, isn't it?
My big worry is the fact that we can't police our borders properly and we can't remove dangerous foreign criminals because the courts are using these increasingly absurd and common sense defying interpretations of the ECHR, and our amendment we're going to table tomorrow would end that.